your questions as much as possible. Dr. Ife and Dr. Yumi will be sharing from their large pool of knowledge and experience, and I want them. I want us to give them a round of applause. Thank you.
So I want this session to be very, very interactive because it's about careers in science. And this morning we got to hear from a professor who talked about a career in science, which is doing it in academia, what you need to apply for funding and stuff like that. But the reason why I asked her to come up and join me and not him is he is following the academic track, but we have experience kind of outside academia or have even thought about it and stuff. So I don't memorize my slide deck, but I did start in academia working in Drosophila. I ended up working for a large pharmaceutical company where I took the tools that I learned while studying Drosophila, which is basically molecular biology, DNA and RNA, and used that to help identify new targets for drugs. And then with my expertise in molecular biology, I entered the world of sequencing, which is getting the sequence from the DNA, and eventually segued into the world of clinical testing. And over my years of basically working in science, I got to meet a lot of scientists, basically my coworkers, and not all of them wanted to stay in academia and become a professor. Many of them said, I want to do something different, but what they could bring with them is their scientific way of thinking and using it to apply to different types of jobs. And that could range from being able to write in publications and explain to the general population why they should wash their hands for COVID testing, all the way up to taking their scientific thinking and working for a big financial bank and helping them understand the risk. So that's kind of like one reason why I'm here. And if Dr. Ife wants to add to that, and then we'll basically break it out to whatever you guys want to talk.
Thank you, Dr. Yumi. It's a privilege to join you on here. During the introduction, I think Miss Alima said there are large, I wouldn't say large pool of experience, but for me, it's probably she's on the farther side of experience. And for me, it's maybe getting the perspective of a younger person who is setting out and just to have a balance to that. Um, for me, I've always been somebody who is very disruptive in thinking, if I would say that. And the academia world, as to me, has always been like an enclosure. I wanted more. So I'm always very interested in research and development. And for me, I don't have to do that as a lecturer. I don't have to do that with a professor title. I want to be something else. Yeah. I was speaking with Dr. Yumi that I would love to, after my postdoc, delve into R&D in a pharma company. And that is where I would like to put my creativity into. So my perspective today would be to bring perhaps the kind of mindset that you need to navigate choices, breaking away from the status quo and thinking outside what we've been conditioned to know. A certain track that you have to follow. When you finish your bachelor's, you have to do masters. Then you have to do your PhD. Then you have to get a lecturing job. Then you have to publish to get promoted. And if you deviate from that, you feel like you've gone completely astray out of what helps you to get to the ladder of the career. So just encouraging a shift of mindset to look at possibilities outside what you currently know. Thank you.
So if somebody doesn't want to pop up immediately, what we could also do is literally hand out pass around this mic and basically tell me, why did you come here? What do you hope to get out of it? So did you come here strictly to learn about Drosophila so that you can become ultra in Drosophila biology or what have you? Or is there something
Much? I can't deceive you. I'm blessed for coming here. Initially, when I saw the advert, I've been thinking of a living animal model, like rats, like that. So where do I go? How do I do it? I've been attending Professor Abolaji's workshop. So now said, if I should come for days, so automatically all the knowledge that I've gathered before, then it may really help me. So my coming here, I had a mind of changing from animal model to Drosophila usage for research. So when I came, all the lectures, everything, I told you, this workshop has really helped me, bridging the gap between the theory that I always take in class. I always teach them in class with a practice now. That is experimental research. I've really learned. Look at the Western blotting that we just did. When you hear Western blotting, you hear PCR from this side of the world. It will be like, something that is so big that we cannot really get done. But look at what Dr. Ife, Dr. Badmos, how they've been teaching us like we are secondary school pupils. And we thank God that God has really helped us. And for me now, I've told Professor Abolaji that henceforth, my project students, they are coming here to do their project. I have, I've been considering it before that I want to change my this thing from, I told you I did something on ulcerative colitis, but I want progression to colon cancer. So that is me I want to do now. And with this workshop, I've really gained a lot of, this knowledge and understanding concerning Drosophila as a model for my research. So I'm really grateful. Even the lab intellectuality laboratory, something that you taught us. In fact, I God really gave me. God bless you with me with that on that aspect too. Then which other one? So many, so many, so many. Even with Dr. Professor Ademowa that came today concerning how we can just help ourselves, how we can think. I have a lot of things in my notes that I may not be able to like be saying. That if I should visit my notes, I have a lot to say about this workshop. I'm ready to change from animal usage for research to Drosophila melanogaster research. So thank you so much. Uh,
He said we should think on what we want to do outside having bachelor, having masters, having PhD, got lecturing job, get published, got promotion. That we should think. He said, me, I'll be looking at it that thinking outside that particular box in this side of the world is very difficult. For example, you want to go into, okay, for example, one of our lecturers said he was establishing farm company. He established one. He was kicked out of that place when he gets married. In Nigeria, it's not easy. Regulatory bodies will finish you. Dr. Ife, you understand what I'm trying to say. Now that we come and say you are not a pharmacist, how do you want to do this? They kick you out. What's their name again? Even the pharmaceutical, they will come and they will discourage you from anything you are trying to do outside what you customize of doing. We have this heart. When you have your what's it called, bachelor, you have your masters, you have people looking at you for the lecture. That's the next thing that will come to their mind. And when you say you are deviating, for example, these days as a biochemist, you want to open a medical lab, what's it called, medical lab institute. They will say, no, you cannot do it. As you are not a medical lab scientist. You can ask Professor Abolaji what he will have passed through before establishing this particular place. People will have come to disturb him before he can establish this particular. So what can be your suggestion or your advice for people who really want to go outside this box, but they find it difficult, especially in this part of the world? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will just speak to that briefly. And what I'm going to say might not sit well with a lot of people, but I'm used to that. Every time I get, Ife, you can relate to this. Yes, I can. And that's why I can respond to it. So, If you've listened to everybody who has spoken, because for me, I hear the science, but I hear the behind the scenes of the science that people present. I'll start from the first day with Dr. Fala. He told you about what he did. We heard about the move of Dr. Yumi from the US, and despite the wealth of experience she has, she landed in a new city, a new country with a fresh challenge. But there was something that made her valuable even in the face of adversity. She was ready. That's number two. Professor Ross has probably shown you all these amazing avatars. I never heard any part where he said, I just relaxed on the sofa, picked up a phone, and got people to join me. No, he did not present 3 months of work, decades of establishing a network. One thing I realize is we enjoy stories of shortcut, the easy way to get there. And that is why I say my mindset, I always preach mindset. I'm a very resilient person. You see, when it comes to tenacity, I always say if you want to survive regardless of your gender, mental, cognitive resilience, social resilience, emotional resilience. It's as simple as you running the same experiment you've run several times and just this time it fails. Resilience. So the beauty of even being in research, of meeting students every day with different attitudes and personalities, it expands your tolerance threshold. It teaches you resilience. If you're going to make a point, nobody will wait for you, sit to listen to you. You have to stand tall. There is so much noise in the world that for you to hear an actual meaningful statement, your voice needs to be louder. So if your resilience is not stronger than your adversaries, you will always, you begin to even bring the limitation. So now it's clouding your ability to even step out. Oh, if I make an attempt, they will shut me down. So instead of even making an attempt, you're already putting the blocking factor in front of you. I pick on the stories of people above me who have gone through. Nobody has it easy. When you think this part of the world, oops, come and see what happens there. The competition is even stiffer. It's a fast-paced environment. I can tell you that. And for you to survive there and be relevant, because in science you can become obsolete like this. So for you to stay relevant, you need to stay ready, stay refreshed, stay engaged, and more importantly, approach humility in learning. I can't preach that enough. Sometimes the person who takes you to the next level is the least person you look at in terms of profile. So if you begin to dissociate certain attitudes that we have from this part of the world and begin to embrace things like openness, resilience, tenacity, being goal oriented rather than position oriented, then maybe things can begin to change. Yes, there will be challenges, but it makes the story better. So none of the people seated here, none of the ones we listened to said, oh, every grant I wrote, I won. Every proposal I made, it became something. I think I was having a chat with Miss Alima that this year, it got to a point I got so accustomed to rejection emails that from the first line, I know the rest of it. I'm like, okay, thank you. And it's so rude this time that they literally tell you, do not ask us to give you a feedback.
Actually gain. For me, yeah, my career plans. Sure, I'm going to relate it. For me, I had okay, let me start from my background. I had my bachelor's in zoology. For my master's, I did zoology too, with a specialization in cellular parasitology. My project was more of a computational and a little of a wet lab. So for me, and when I went for my PhD too, my lab is a bioorganic chemistry lab where we did a lot of extraction, isolation, purification, getting pure compounds and all. Then in collaboration with another lab to do bioactivity studies. So for me, it feels more like I have more organic chemistry skills, more than wet lab skills. So I was looking for a way to bridge the gap. So that was what brought me here, actually, to get more skills, which I can say well to an extent that I've been able to acquire more skills during these few days. So, like I said, the first day we came here, that I'm actually interested in drug discovery, and yeah, it's an interdisciplinary field. biological sciences, chemical sciences, computational studies, which for me, I've been able to at least get what's it called, skills in at least a level of skills in each of the aspects, which I really appreciate, and I still want to build on it because I'm interested in research, mostly research, discovering drugs against diseases. So that is what it is for me coming here to gain more skills, work not really academic, except for if it's an academic environment where it is mostly research. I don't really look forward to maybe teaching or lecturing. I want to research that translates to helping human in against different diseases. So, and this what's it called, workshop has been able to at least help me advance me further towards achieving my goals. So I'll stop there.
Meant for her. That's it. We move on. Afi. What do you think?
All right, so thank you very much. It's been an honor being here, being part of this. I'd only like to tell my story how I got here. So, one Friday, I've already told some of my colleagues and the people I've met here. So, I think one Friday, which was 2 weeks ago, I was in my room preparing to leave for the lab, just to go about my usual lab work. Then I received a call from my supervisors in Ghana that there is this workshop ongoing in Nigeria on Monday, and they want me to leave Ghana for Nigeria on Sunday. It was just Friday. I was like, I have my whole weekend planned already, but I couldn't say it out. So I was like, okay, fine. So I was like, okay, fine, okay. So I went to the office to meet them. They booked the tickets, and I was supposed to travel the following day to Accra and just book a flight the next morning. So I came here. I wasn't prepared. Although I knew a little about Drosophila because I did my master's in India, University of Delhi, where we did some Drosophila work, but I didn't specialize in that. So I had some little background in that. So I got here before they actually briefed me through phone on phone about why they brought me here. So one was because it's about drug discovery, and at the center, it's actually a new center. I'm the only one with that background, so that was the reason why they chose me. And the other was due to the fact that I wasn't doing anything elsewhere. So they said, okay, maybe I should just do that. So I came, and so far it's been good. I've been able to learn a lot of stuff. Some of the things that we've been doing in the lab, I did it in masters, but I forgot. So this has been really good for Western blotting. I've been quiet, but I've been doing these things, but I just forgot. So it's been really good so far. I've been here for almost 2 weeks now, and I don't regret coming, although it was impromptu. Yeah, so. But one more thing. I've been asked this question a lot: Ghana jollof, Nigerian jollof. I would like to add that Nigerian jollof is good, but Ghana jollof is best. Okay, I will say that. All right, so thank you very much.
No problem. No problem. You know, I've been rooting for you guys to win the World Cup. Okay. I'll remove my support now. All right. We have the clan captain.
Okay,
Okay.
so they say, I don't know. I'd like to appreciate the faculty for putting this workshop together. It's been insightful for me. I'm currently on my PhD program, and the Drosophila conversation came up months ago, one of my supervisors. And once I heard this workshop was coming up, I told myself I just had to be here to see what this is really about. I'm in diabetes research. So really, we're talking neurodegenerative diseases and cancer, but I just felt I needed to be here. And sincerely, I've immersed myself in all the wealth of experience and the information that has been disseminated here so far. As an individual, my goal or career progression, will I call it, um, prospects, better said, as being to move from academics once I'm done with this PhD thingy to the industry. I mean, I celebrate Professor Abolaji and others, but I don't think I want to do that. And so the conversations about how to bridge, moving from academic to clinicals, patenting your work, getting industry collaborations just felt like the lifeblood I needed when I got here. Usually when I discuss this with people in Covenant University, where I'm from, I often sound like a weirdo, right? But being here, it felt like, okay, I think I've not really been speaking crazy stuff to myself. So in all, from the very first talk we had, to the hands-on sessions and everything, I've been really, really, what will I call it now? Baptized into whatever it was that was the burden behind this workshop. And so thank you once again. I believe I'll take the gospel back home to Covenant University and would keep up the Drosophila gospel in our only two way, most assuredly. Thank you.
Hi, sir. Can you see me? Okay, so career progression or my story in the first place. I think I'd like to say that, or I kept it in my head that okay, I was coming here to be a sponge basically, and it was one of the reasons why Dr. Bala's story really resonated with me. One, because I'm kind of like a recipient of someone investing in girls in science. Yes, you can ask questions, you're not going to be told to keep quiet. Children are not meant to be heard, or, yeah, things like that. And I'm still doing my own master. So I'd like to, my first day, it's really dawned on me that, okay, wait, qualifications wise, I might be, it felt like I was a fish in a very big sea of water or something like that. And I know that I did not want to follow the traditional route of I did my BSc in medical laboratory science, and I knew that I did not want to follow the traditional route of just being in the clinical laboratory. Yeah, and I think it's something I mentioned to Yumi the day she spoke to us. I did not want to follow the traditional route of, be a laboratory scientist. Then, if you do 3-5 years there, you might, be your team lead or head of department or something. Yes, I admit I'm still trying to find my footing or find what I have things I'm interested in, the general blood, cancer, things like that. I have areas I am interested in. As regards, okay, academia, R&D, therapeutics, it's I'm not, it was one of the things I said that, okay, I'd go to this conference or this workshop and actually see for myself what it is like working here, or actually see for myself how to acquire these tools, learn these things, and where do we go on from here, or what opportunities or what spaces are available outside of the very traditional spaces that we hear of or we are exposed to. Funny enough, one of my lecturers messaged me today from school, from like my BSc. I don't know why she remembered me today. And she was like, oh, okay, you're about done with your MSc. You can come back to UNILAG to lecture. We need the younger ones. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much, ma. I would keep it in mind. And it's just like how Dr. Waya said she's a bit of a rebel. I don't want that mode. I don't want a mode to be. I enjoy. Okay, someone has gone through this route. It's a proven route. You can do this. You can do that. I love that. I love hearing people's experiences. But I don't want to be necessarily told that okay, this is what you should do. And we're waiting for you here. No. So this was, or it has really been, eye-opening for me, especially. And I know I'm probably going to hold on to the hem of Dr. Bala's clothes. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, so I just like to make a comment. So the one thing that I really want to de-emphasize is the thinking of, oh, you need to set a goal for 5 years from now. I'm going to be doing this. In reality, career is part of life. And what you really need to know is what is my priority in life. And to be honest, it was to be with him. Okay. So he got a postdoc at UCLA, and I'm like, I'm from New York. I don't want to go to Los Angeles, but he was my priority. So I followed him there, and, and that's how I ended up doing my postdoc and just, okay. Did not want an academic career in Drosophila. And so with that, I was very lucky. I had opportunities to actually land in a pharmaceutical company or land in the sequencing center. The top priority was that we would stay basically within the same city, within the same commuting distance, and that we would adjust our career, because I do believe for both of us, that was our top priority. So that is something that you have to kind of keep in mind. It's almost a matter of luck or chance that you end up, for me, a Drosophila lab, all the way to leading a clinical diagnostic lab for COVID testing. A lot of it was chance. So,
Thank you. Sure. If I don't have a priority to move to there. Anyways, my priority is not related to that. But just to just to buttress that, something she mentioned that I'll say in another word: priority and having the fluidity in your day-to-day life. I realized that a lot of people have a fixed mindset. Like it's a common thing even in interviews. In the next 5 years, where will you be? On a fly. I mean, who knows? Who knows if there will be an earthquake? I don't know, right? So many times my rebellious mind speaks, but I try to be politically correct at the same time. I am not somebody with a fixed mindset. I have a growth mindset. And the difference in that is a fixed mindset, things have to work in a certain timeline for them to feel fulfilled. I do not have a destination that is tied to any profession. That is Dr. Yumi's story. She did not have to become a Drosophilist for her to achieve the peak of her career, but she had skills that moved through transitions. So if at this point you feel like what you have cannot be applied to anything but what you're doing, we need to start rethinking things. Become so fluid, right? Do not put yourself in this box that you're only useful for where you are. So much so that even when you are absent, work can still go on without you. Become somebody who is relevant in your field, not in your office. There is two different things. So if somebody is coming to you, or you work on diabetes, you work on cancer, and say, can you consult for a new firm that is trying to set up maybe diagnostic testing in this area? And you say, oh no, I only teach Bio 101. What did you learn from teaching Bio 101? Can you sit with them and direct them that, okay, I think these are the kind of tests you need, but bring in somebody with more clinical expertise to validate my suggestions. So if the only place you see yourself right now is just in the four corners of a classroom, then you might be underutilizing the PhD you have. Yeah? So let's begin to break the walls. Again, mindset, knowing what your priority is. I usually say something. I don't think there is an age limit to when it is to refine your purpose. I don't have a very rigid purpose. My purpose, it flows with what is the current situation. If I have to change to another environment, what is the dynamics in that environment? What do they need? Now, everybody wants to lecture in Department of Chemistry. We have people who are not ready to retire. What are you going to do? Put them in a room and throw a bomb? No. They are going to wait 10 more years. I mean, it means 10 more years before you get a job. If all you want to do is become another chemistry lecturer. So what do you do with your chemistry degree? Go back and sell drugs? You have to do something else. So let's begin to think of career as network of diseases, right? We had a shift of mindset from looking at diseases as just one tumor standing in one place to network. Drug discovery, network. Look at your career development in form of a network, starting with your mindset not being fixed, but a growth mindset that says challenges, that envisages challenges and is ready to accept them, embrace them, and rule over them. This is not motivational speaking. It's what I've done, what I do in my daily life, and I've seen others do. And that is what I teach my women. That is what I teach my girls as well. So let's do it. Okay. So others have been saying a lot about they enjoyed what they did or what they learned from the workshop. What next? So if you don't have the answer now, think about, so what's next? So the so what of this entire experience, what is next? And that's where I will leave this.
Thank you so much. I am I'm very grateful I was able to come for this workshop. I want to thank Professor Abalaji for over the years. I mean, it's been what now? Over 10 years since I've known Professor Abalaji. And I was discussing with Professor Ross earlier. Um, it happened in a biochemistry, protein biochemistry class. So Professor Abalaji was teaching us. So I happened to do my first degree at the University of Ibadan. So mid of the lecture, he paused and then he asked us a question: which of us would like to make sense of biochemistry? Which of us would like to know what biochemistry actually means? And then some of us took our hands up, and I happened to be one of those persons. And he was like, "Take down your names, we'll create a group, and then we'll discuss after." And then he was talking about, share with us about some of the experiences he's had in the course of his travels and some of the things he has seen and the vision he has for Africans to have a better mindset, but using the skills that you are receiving, the skills you are getting in Africa, and make sense and come back to Africa and make help Africans essentially. And that tallies exactly with the very first lecture in this track. So I entered the first day, Professor Masoka Fala, and then he was talking about how we shouldn't work in silos. We should come together as Africans. I mean, he had an opportunity to go back to the US and said no. His mom literally called him and asked him, "What are you doing with your life?" He said, "No, mom, my people needs me." And that is exactly, I mean, it deeply resonated with my mind. It's in its entirety. And for me, moving on from here, so what next is I have to understand, and I do not understand why academia has to be like this far. Academia and industry has to be like as if they are enemies. Yeah. For me, I feel there's a need of that handshake, and it ties back to what Professor Falah was saying. There needs to be this handshake between these two. So we shouldn't have publications that have just been piled up somewhere. There's no channel for these thoughts, these ideas to be translated directly into tangible results. So that's like the my like if a change in my mindset again. And lastly, the last word from Professor Reagan just this evening, he said, I asked him a question and he was like, "You go and do it." And that's like for me, that's like what I need. So for the what next, I need to go and start doing these things that I have essentially.
Um, Thank you very much. I really want to show my sincere gratitude. Okay, okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I really want to show my sincere gratitude to be here today because it has been like a lot of a lot of knowledge gaining from, because I would just like to share my story a little bit and then touch what the question they asked. I would like to start from my secondary school. I went to this secondary school that we don't have chemistry teacher, we don't have physics teacher, we don't have biology teacher. It was that bad. Sincerely, it was that bad. So I finished that secondary school with the little that I can learn myself. Only three of us were able to add credit in our WIC, just three. In a class of around, I think we're about 40 in science. So just three of us would had credit in our sciences, physics, chemistry, biology. And of course, C6, 66, 60. So it was just a narrow escape. Then it didn't stop there. You must have been hearing that some people wrote jam maybe 5 times, 6 times, no admission. Yeah, we are seeing an example today. I wrote jam 5 times before I gained an admission. And for those 5 times, I never failed jam. I didn't fail any of the jam. I didn't. My jam score was 290, 290, 275, 276. I didn't fail jam at all. But then I choose in Lorry, and there's some admission criteria, so there was not given admission actually. But I didn't fail because I was qualified. But as I used to say, Nigeria happens to me. So I then did take my last jam, and I was like, just write it. In fact, it's got to a time that I don't even need to read to write the jam because I'm already used to the questions. So the last jam I wrote, I had 92 physics, 88 chemistry, and because I didn't read, the English went low, around 50 something, but my science were really great. And everything that I knew in my sciences were just self-study. So it actually it has given me this ability to sit down with a thing, learn it, and then work with it. So when I got to UI, my university, I started my studies. My first year, second year was not really great. It was kind of bad because there's this student attitude in me that's actually wind down because I've stayed almost 5 years at home. So, but I was able to pick up 300 level, and then my final year, I think I had one of the best results for that final year because I was actually improving. So, but during COVID-19, during the lockdown, I was just thinking of what I can do, and then that was when I began to read about chemistry in details. So I now in Leninja, there is a particular part that they wrote computational biology. So I picked interest in that, and since that time, I began to try all I could to just know what it is and start working towards it. So I live with one of my uncles who studied computer science. So he introduced me to a little of what is computer language, which include Python, Java, things like that. But then Java was looking so strange. So, but Python was looking a little bit friendly. So I went with Python. Then I learned everything on my own. The whole of Python that I know, I learned on my own. Then I began to take some projects, things like molecular docking. That I was looking for a way to just bridge my biochemistry and then the machine learning I had. So from there, I began to improve. My laptop crashed. I stopped. I stopped the process for almost like 3 years until I graduated. So I didn't really have a stable laptop. But when I got to my NYC and I began to have some money, I ended to take almost like 4 works, my NYC, then 3 other things to get a laptop. So when I had the money, the first thing I did was to get a laptop and to resume what I had stopped like 3 years ago. And the learning curve was really sharp, and I was able to learn so many skills. I was able to learn like nature pharmacology, molecular docking, QSAR modeling, things that has to do with machine learning. So I learned them all on my own. Then I moved to MDS, that's molecular dynamics simulation, where you have to use Linux and that challenge. So I learned Linux because I wanted to do MDS. Then I needed to compile the software entirely on Linux. And I could remember the tutorial I was watching. The person said, don't try to do this on Windows, that if you do it, it might crash your laptop because it's not compatible. I said I would try it. I said I would do it. So I took the challenge. I tried it. It didn't work. But then I figured out a particular software glitch that didn't make that thing work. So I was able to fix it, and I compiled the software on Windows
in Linux environment and I ran the simulation. So I was really happy with what I was able to accomplish. So I really thank God, because this can only be God, for making me meet Professor Abolaji, because he has really been like a mentor to me. He held my right hand since my undergraduate, because it came when I was about giving up actually. It came and just gave me like a blueprint of a path I can tread. By the way, I'm not saying I want to go to academia, but at least I see someone that has achieved something and give me hope that I also can also tread that path. So for my BSc project, I did it in his lab, and that was when I was introduced to Drosophila. Then my MSc too in his lab, like I'm currently running my MSc in his lab, and then I have more experience in Drosophila, but then I I have been working towards um, that gap, like that's bridge the gap between this computer science basically um, and biological science. So my main focus of my area of research is basically drug discovery, but that sits in the mid of computer science, computer science and biochemistry and biological sciences. So my focus is basically to be able to use computer science, the knowledge I've gained in computer science, that I've gained in computer science, to be able to solve biological problems. And in doing that, I just do not have the vision to do that on a very low scale. I have a vision to actually maybe have a company that would be able to solve that kind of problem, such that um, you could bring your research ideas, then the company will run some simulations, computer work to give you leads, and you can go back to your lab and then try to bring these things to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, have just a few minutes left. So I don't know if I should. Do you have something to say before I go? Yeah. Do you want to
Just to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is where I'm getting selfish. I'm just very curious about where you're all from. So I came here assuming everybody here is from Nigeria,
No.
but that's clearly not the case. So could you shout out what other country you're from?
Yeah, I'm from
Ghana? Uh-huh. Okay, so we've got Ghana.
Yeah.
Nigeria. Any other country? Kenya?
Kenya.
Uh-huh. So we have three.
Three. Yeah. Partly.
Uh-huh. Yeah. New Jersey. So this is what I wanted for my learning. Who has the best jollof rice?
Nigeria. Nigeria. No doubt. Nigeria. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please let's keep them around. Any comments from you guys?
Thinking. So while I'm thinking about what I want to say on that, I do want to add, I do want to build a little bit. So this was not my session, and I wasn't going to talk about this. But first of all, thank you for the shirt. Yumi looks amazing. Second of all, thank you for sharing your stories with us and with me. I can't tell you how much of a privilege that is. Sure, put there. I had on this topic, I had a conversation. So I headed the PhD program at Mount Sinai decade ago or so. And actually we started as part of that, to my knowledge, the first bio-entrepreneur PhD in the US, okay? And the way I did that was I brought in a friend of mine. So I've started 4 companies, as I guess at this point you must know. And I brought in a friend who had actually funded one of those companies, Jeff Smith. And long story short, I brought him to the dean and I said, you need to make this guy a professor. So he's a lawyer, but he had actually funded over 150 companies. He knew more science than anybody I knew, including myself. Okay? And the reason I'm telling this story is, as part of that, so we started this whole bio-entrepreneurship track. And as part of that, my sister is a heavy hitter on Wall Street, okay? She basically invented modern risk management.
and you can see her story on Wikipedia. This story's done well for herself. She thinks what I do is kind of cute, until she needed some of what we were doing. But she set me up with JP Morgan. So she was head of global risk management for JP Morgan for some years. And she set me up there with a guy named Venkat, who, so I know all these Wall Street people now. It's partly how we're able to help out this institute here, because I have wealthy friends. And Venkat, who's now head of Barclays, and I set up a program from Mount Sinai PhD program into Wall Street to do risk management, not biology. Okay? And I was at a party at JP Morgan, for JP Morgan, and the head of it, Jamie Dimon, and I was chatting with him. And he loved this program, okay? And he said he would hire any PhD that we minted, sight unseen. He didn't even want to interview them. So I asked, yeah, exactly. So I asked, so to get into JP Morgan is no joke, all right? This is straight into, like physically into Wall Street, on Wall Street. And so I asked him, that's great, Jamie. Why would you do that? And he said something that's the punchline to my story. He said, we hire business people to be the creatives. Okay, so somehow when you're in business school, you're supposed to learn how to be creative. Some of you are smirking already. And we hire mathematicians and computer experts to be rigorous. But there's only one training that teaches you to be both. And that's a biology PhD. And I have thought about this over the last decade since he said that, because that seems ridiculous to me. There must be some other way to go about that. And you know what? I think he's right. Everybody here, you know, and maybe you haven't thought about it, but I bet if you thought about it now, that if I told you to go figure out risk management after the initial, you know, in 2 weeks, you'd be pretty good at it, right? But what you don't understand is nobody else would be. So what the training you're getting is magic. And yeah, I just want you to understand that. So what they're talking about is you could literally do anything. I had a conversation with a guy. I gave a talk in Montreal and then this kind of talk. And he was a guy, he was just a postdoc. He was just about to go out in the world and he was very frustrated. He couldn't find a job. And so we were having that chat and I said, you're a chemist. Why don't you just come up with a new polymer to build a better bicycle, right? And he could do, I couldn't do that, but he could do that. I could probably figure it out just like you could. And he said, well, that's not the kind of chemistry I do. So the point that these two folks here were making is be open. Don't decide this is what I do and live your science life vertically, because you can live horizontally now with this training. And that goes to the thing that this guy has heard so many times, he's probably sick of hearing it, which is life and especially careers are about options. They're not about, I want to do this. It's about options. And the reason you come to lab and you work hard is because you give yourself more options, right? If you do well, then other people don't have to decide what happens to your life. You get to decide. And the harder you work, the more the decisions come to you. That's actually why you work hard in lab. It's not just to give me papers and make glory out of us. It is to give you a life of options, which is really all you can ask about in life, right? Is to have the options to do what you want. And the second part of that is when you apply to jobs and things like that, apply to everything, okay? Apply to academia, apply to industry, apply to bicycle shops, all of it. Because maybe going and coming up with a new bicycle in a city you've always wanted to live in might beat having a pretty decent scientific job in a place you've never wanted to live in. Maybe, maybe not. Or maybe you want to be with somebody that matters to you, and that's your best option. Does that make sense? So that's the story and the narrative I would bring to you. And it's not just for me, it's by somebody who put their money where their mouth is. They hired a set of people in that pipeline that went through there, and I think they actually did pretty well. And I can guarantee you none of them had any idea what risk management is. In fact, I'm pretty sure almost none of you guys know what risk management is exactly. And that doesn't matter. I guarantee you guys can figure it out in 2 weeks flat. You won't be the world's expert. They'll take you a full month, right? But you got that, right? So all of that. Okay. So you wanted me to talk about how to start business, or maybe the better thing to do is to explain how I got into starting businesses. Maybe that's the thing that would be more helpful. So we did this, and then I will tell you a little practical advice, and I will keep this as short as I possibly can, because I think everybody here wants to go home.
Yeah. Not to go. Wow.
She has been on me all day. All day. You've been snapping behind me like, yeah, just move it.
No.
Yes, you have. No, she hasn't. Okay. So for me, the point is everybody's driven by something. I always have a North Star of what's driving me, and I think we pretty much, head that direction. So as I said, I started as actually a neurobiologist in flies, using the eye to work out how the nervous system patterns and so on. And I think we did pretty well in that. And then I had one person in my lab initially who got into this project that ended up being that thyroid drug. And that worked amazingly well, all right? So what I realized from that was, A, I was done with the fly eye, because suddenly that just wasn't enough anymore. Because I actually met patients who were getting treated with this drug. And the one that flipped my switch, everybody's got that moment, was a friend of mine who was running, there were 4 clinical trials running at the same time. One of them was actually at WashU Medical School, which is where I was at. And he said, hey, you want to meet one of my patients who was just starting on the drug? She was 26 years old, I think. She had the inherited form of this disease, which a quarter of them do. And she was dying, but she was on this drug now, and she was doing really well. She had a 7-year-old son who had also inherited it. And of course, she was going to die watching that her son was going to do this too, right? So how sick is that? And then she was telling me how grateful she was that her son actually now had a shot at it. She never mentioned herself, but I knew what was happening with her. She actually did incredibly well on the drug. So that was when I decided, you know what, I'm done with the fly eye, and I'm going to do that. But that's when we got to that second point, which is the point of this was not the same as working out patterning in the nervous system. That was never the point. The point was to have more women like this and helping more of their kids like that, because I had kids, have kids, okay? And if you ever get kids, you'll get it, all right? I would run through a wall for any of them. So what does that mean? And that meant starting a company, because I decided we were going to use these flies to develop more drugs and keep doing them. I had no idea how to start a company. At WashU Medical School, at that time was the #2 ranked medical school in the country, they had not had a company formed out of them other than in devices out of the hospital. They had a company formed out of them in over 40 years. So they had no idea how to do it. I had no idea how to do it. No idea. I was a fly geneticist. And so what I did was, I hope this is giving them what you're asking. What I did was I set up a 1 to 2 lunches every week with people who had started a company in something, okay? Every week for months. And slowly over time, as they would all give me their little story, because everybody had to tell you their story of how things started, kind of like Laura did and so on. And I guess what I'm doing right now, I began to understand I need to patent things. So the first thing I learned was I have to start a company. Everything I did in my lab would just belong to the university. And then if I went to pharma and said, I've got this amazing lead compound, they would say, who owns it? I would say, WashU owns it. And they would say, please don't let the door hit you on the way out. Why would we want to work with the university plus you and all that stuff? But if you start a company, we can buy your company and then we own everything. Yeah? I didn't know any of this, right? So it was so dumb. I was so dumb about this. And I swear this actually happened. I walked into a pharma, it was Novartis, as I recall. I walked into their office and I said, if you just give me your drug library, I'll screen it for free and give you back the hits. And the guy, so you're wondering, why is that dumb, right? That shows you how clueless you guys are, because one of the guys there who was the chemist, so pharmaceutical companies are just drug libraries plus money, okay? And he said, we're going to give you our proprietary library so you can burn out the entire intellectual property of it to screen it with some fruit flies so that you could, right? Okay, that's right. That was the laugh, right? And he said, so that you can blow our entire IP for this entire company, which is like a $50 billion company, because, and so you're going to give us some fruit fly hits back? So they had that. And then they said, please don't let the door hit you on the way out. And I said, well, what would you like to hear? They said, start a company, you moron. And out I went. Okay, so we started Medros. When I say we, couldn't do this alone because I had a day job. So I recruited the nicest, smartest guy I knew, Tom Baranski. Actually, he came up with the name. It's not Medicines from Ross, it's Medicines from Drosophila. And we opened the company in 2006. 2007 was the Great Recession, okay? I mean, could not have been better. But we actually, Medros did all right. And we produced some leads, we got contracts and all this stuff. But when we moved to New York, the original investor said, I'm only investing things in St. Louis because that's what he cared about. And okay, so that was that. So since then, I've started 3 more companies, Flightpath, Vivan that you saw there. And so let me tell you about Vivan, and then I will stop. And I'll tell you quickly what's required. So I was running this fly to bedside clinical trial. And how that got started was that drug got approved in 2011. And about a year later, I was sitting in my office. I got a call from some random person who said, hi, I have that medullary thyroid carcinoma. I'm taking your drug because I know the story, the fly story. And I want to donate some of my tumor so that you can sequence it and just give the data to the community because I want to help out. Okay, because I'm starting to relapse on this drug, right? And he said, but I asked Sloan Kettering and they were going to charge me $15,000 to do it. Can you do it any cheaper? I'm like, they're going to charge you to do, yeah. So I said, first of all, we'll do it at least for free, okay? So I was pretty sure I could deliver that. And as I was chatting with him, I realized, but that's not going to help this guy out. And literally as I'm talking to him is how the fly avatar idea was born. As I'm chatting with him, I'm drawing a fly and like all the things on it. And that's how they got started. And in order to drive, so we started the clinical trial, fly to bedside. I got some money from the dean. We didn't charge anybody. It was free to everybody because it was very experimental. I refused to take money from wealthy people who tried to buy into it. We had a huge media presence. CBS Sunday with Charles Osgood did a whole piece on it. I think 13 million people watched its first airing. We had 2, including Cover magazine article and Esquire magazine. You can check it out. All that stuff. I had literally thousands of people try to get into this trial. I even had to hire an admin just to clear my phone every day to get them out there. So now I'm going to cut forward. In order to finish that trial, because the money I got from the dean was starting to run out, my brilliant idea was, I will license it to somebody. They will give me money. I will put it into the trial, and it's a win for everybody. So I went to the dean. I said, if I'm going to get an investor, don't take any of the money, which they usually do. I won't take any of the money, which I would usually do. It all goes into the trial, and I can finish it. He was fine with that. So I found Laura. She put in that money, which we used to finish the trial. We initially had 56 patients that we did. And then, as you may know, the pandemic hit after we treated the first 9, and that collapsed the trial. And a year later, when we could open, because Mount Sinai, which is where I was at, was COVID central. All those pictures you saw in New York with like the tent hospitals and stuff, that's where I worked. I had to step over patients to get out of my lab. Okay, so that's where Vivan comes from. All right, and then I have a new company, Rare. So the reason that I start these companies is if you choose that as your lifestyle because you don't want to work for other people, and I admit I don't work well with bosses, okay? I like being a boss, I don't like having a boss. and it's just the way I'm wired, then that's one way to do it. Okay. So what you need to do from that is, if you're working at a university, you need to have an idea that is probably either separate from the university so that it's all yours, or you need to have a long conversation with the university to keep the dogs off. Okay, because some universities can get very aggressive. Yeah, I know. So for example, Mount Sinai, the deal I cut with them for VVAN is, instead of taking 20%, and it used to be more, they agreed to take only 3%, and they agreed not to take anything for the first 2 years. And that allowed Laura to get that thing off the ground. And she could go, so why does this percent matter? Because when you go to an investor and you say, give me $1 million, and oh, incidentally, 200,000 or 400,000, it's going to go to the university and won't be going into the company. I hope that's okay. They're going to say, don't let the door hit you on the way out, right? So it's not just how much you're making, it's how much you can raise. Nobody wants to give money to a third entity that they don't know. Okay, so that actually matters, and I'm working hard on that at Glasgow to change all that. So those are the key things. The only other thing I'll add, so I'm a scientific CSO, scientific director, whatever, of P4 Precision Medicine Accelerator Fund. So I've now looked through probably over 150 companies to judge them on what P4 invests in. I know a fair bit about what's investable and what's not. Find somebody like me, and very often I'll send you to somebody who's really expert. If you think you have a good idea, make sure it's a good idea. And not only mean good like a good scientific idea, I mean good like somebody cares enough to fund it idea. I would say 80% of the ideas in companies that fail because they didn't make that first check. It turns out it was a brilliant scientific idea that nobody wants, okay? Or they don't want enough to pay for it. Yeah? Am I missing anything? Okay. I don't want to get into the fundraising. That's just beating your head on a wall. So. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was